Good evening, everyone. We're about to go live on 90.1 FM. Y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy because Big Daddy is back in the building. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been up in here. So sit back, relax. All our first-time viewers, go ahead and hit the like button. Our returning viewers, go ahead and hit the heart button. Go ahead and put in the comment section where you're chiming in from. Everywhere from Mississippi to Kalamazoo. We want to see you, hear you, and touch base with us. Share the video. We're going to have a dynamic show today. So get ready for a great show. We even got Jason Clark in here. You ain't seen Jason in a couple of years in the studio. So we're ready to rock and roll. So buckle your seatbelts. We're about to take off in a few minutes. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Reviving Mississippi. I'm your host, DeKeither Stamps. We got our co-host here, Miss Starlette Simmions. How you doing, Starlette?
I am doing great. How are you?
Yeah, feel good for me to be back, don't it?
Yeah, most definitely.
We even got brother Jason Clark up in here. What's going on, JC?
Not much. What's going on, Miss Stamps?
Hey, y'all, I appreciate y'all for giving me a few weeks to get myself together. Sometimes you got to get together around here. And I appreciate y'all for giving me a little grace and mercy. My phone been ringing off the hook. I ain't seen you or heard you on the radio. I ain't heard you in these different spaces and places. So I'm back. I've been on the road a little bit trying to take care of my family, trying to take care of myself, get things together. So we're going to start this show like we do every week. Remember those folks who are going through bereavement. And we've been shook hard this last few weeks. I'm talking about we done been shook to the foundation with good brothers like Brother Robert Davis. I got two aunts passed away in the last couple of weeks, and several more friends. Y'all, it's getting rough out there. It's getting rough out there with much death and tragedy and things like that. But you got to make sure you take care of those folks who are going through bereavement because it's real. You got to be a friend. So when your time comes, you can have a friend. And when the time comes for me and my family over the last few weeks, I'm blessed because I got good friends. I got amazing. I ain't got good friends. I got amazing friends. God has richly blessed me, and the most valuable thing I have in my life is the relationships I done built inside of my family and the folks who I've adopted and won't let go. And you're gonna have a core group of them on the call today because there's some folks out there who I trust with my life, wealth, and everything else. And we're gonna talk about this. And we're going to start off by recognizing our sponsors. We want to start off by saying thank you to the National Wildlife Federation for the work y'all have done. And WMPR, thank you for your investment in Black media, Black-owned media, not just media that target Black folks, but media that Black folks own. We appreciate National Wildlife Federation for making that investment to help us move 90.1 forward. And our mentor, Mr. Sherry Jones, and boss lady, Ms. Wanda Evers, we appreciate y'all for dealing with us because it's not easy loving Black folks. It ain't easy. It takes a special kind of heart to love Black folks. But putting this in place to benefit all folks. WMPR is a Black-owned media operation, but it's in place and people benefit from it no matter what race you are, no matter what color you are, no matter what creed you are. You benefit from it. And in today's show, you're going to benefit a lot. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about finances. Also, Mr. Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan Transportation Service. Michael Jordan Transportation Service is a wonderful operation. You can go to www.mjs Transportation One for all your transportation needs. And when I say this brother is a good brother, and when you put your money, your time, your mother, your senior citizens, and all those folks into his transportation service, he takes care of. He brings them into his family. He don't just have customers or riders. He pick folks up and treat them like they're his auntie. Treat them like that's my big mama. And so he takes care of them. So make sure you go to www.mjs Transportation One for your transportation needs. Also, if you get hungry during lunchtime, go on out there to Stamp SuperBurgers on Dawson Street. Get you one of them big old burgers. A whole cow between two pieces of bread, seasoned all the way down to the last bite. You can go check out Stamp SuperBurgers on all your social media stuff. And more importantly, you can walk in the front door and get you an experience you ain't never had before. And if you need a good lawyer, go on downtown Jackson, see Stamps Law Firm. They'll take care of you, Larry, and the rest of them. They'll take care of you over there too. So, You got any opening remarks before we get started, Starlette?
I would just like to say I believe that this show today will be very beneficial to all, and I know that each person on our list today will give some very credible information that will help us all. So I'm pretty excited.
JC, where you been? Tell us what's been going on with you, Jason.
Man, it's been a while, been some years, man. I've been around here in the city, though, doing a little work here and there.
Yeah.
Public work, of course. Helping out, getting, logistics, commercial property, stuff like that. Just doing a little bit of this and that. That's about it.
Well, Jason, we appreciate you, brother. You've been over at the post office.
Yeah.
And hooking and jabbing, slashing and stabbing, doing your thing.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to bring our guests on. Today, we're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about finances because everybody's getting these phone calls from folks talking about we'll buy your house, and people talking to you, and you wouldn't even think about selling your house. So somebody call you on the phone, send you something in the mail, and they drive in the conversation. And so today I'm going to show you what I do. Hey, Greg said, what's up, Jay?
Oh, that Greg, what's going on?
Yeah.
California.
I'm gonna lay out my team because in order to be a good steward of what God's giving you in life, I know I'm not an expert. I listen to quality people. And the first person I call on any kind of deal, no matter what kind of deal it is, the first person I call when it comes to, any kind of opportunity, any kind of, venture, I call my wealth manager, and that's Mr. Reginald Thompson. He's with Thompson Wealth Advisors. And Miss Starlette, you know this young man a little bit, don't you?
Yes, sir.
You know him a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Who is he?
That's my great uncle.
He's your great uncle, and he's also my best friend. And I ain't got a lot of friends. Y'all know that. I don't have a lot of friends. Because everybody can't put up with me. But when I say Reginald is a great guy, and he's built a wonderful practice over the years when it comes to wealth management, you can go right to his website. We put it up on the screen there for those who are watching on Facebook, ThompsonWA.com. And he's been in business for a long time. And he's right here from Mississippi. He got roots, throughout Mississippi. He's built his practice and business here, but he services businesses all over the country. Welcome to the show, Reggie.
I appreciate it. How y'all doing this evening?
We're doing well now that you're here, brother. So tell the folks a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So a combination of things. So born and raised Jackson, Mississippi, Seaway graduate. Left here, went to Texas for a good long time before I came back in 2004. But my professional career in the financial services started around 2008, 2009 in the life insurance and estate planning business. And after a while of just seeing some lapses in what was happening in the world, decided to get my CFP, Certified Financial Planner designation. And I'm probably one of, less than a handful of Black CFPs in the state. So, we talk to people about all types of wealth and what it means to be a good steward of money and the resource that is money, because money is just a tool. So between the practice of my wealth management firm, I'm also the chief operating officer of a Black-owned commercial insurance agency, which is the Evans Agency in Surica. So we are here doing business locally, have a lot of public sector clients that we're proud to represent here, amongst others. But man, we do a few things. I'm glad to be here.
And we appreciate you, sir. And also, the next phone call I make when it comes to real estate and things like that, I call the young lady who manages all of Stamps Real Estate's holdings. That's Miss Brandee Harrington. How you doing today, Brandee?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Welcome to the show. You're no stranger to the show. You've been on the show several times over the years. So tell the folks a little bit about yourself and the practice the business you built over the years.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'm Brandee Williams Harrington. I am the principal broker of J. Daniel Realty. So I do own my own real estate company. Prior to doing that, I am a licensed investor as well. So I do have rental property here in the Jackson area, as well as I'm a steward and wanting to make sure, to Reginald's point, that we build wealth through real estate. I am an advocate for wealth management in the sense where I know that real estate is that vehicle in order to use to be able to build wealth. And so I help my investor clients with understanding their ROI or return on investments as it relates to real estate investments here in the Jackson area, as well as do property management for those clients that I serve. And so I do also do residential real estate sales and even commercial as well. So that's a little bit about me.
We sure appreciate you, dear, and the hard work you're doing. But she's built a wonderful business over the years, and I'm honored that she's even picked up me as a client because, again, y'all know I'm not the easiest person in the world to deal with. But when I see the people in our community getting just robbed of their wealth, and most of our wealth in the Black community is tied up in real estate, whether it's a house that we own, family land that we own, and those kinds of things. And the next young man that we're gonna bring on right now is a good friend. I got introduced to him by Mr. Thompson, and I knew him from some other spaces and places. That's Mr. Alex Harvey. He's been on the show before as well. And Alex is the owner of Legacy Land Management. Now, Legacy Land Management was built several years ago. He's a very experienced forester, very experienced land manager. And so, Alex, welcome to the show, sir. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Alex Harvey. I'm a consulting forester, wildlife biologist with Legacy Land Management, LLC. Started Legacy back in 2017. After helping to develop and pilot a program called the Sustainable Forestry and Land Retention Program for African Americans. And doing that work, the whole point was working with African American families, farmers, forest landowners around removing barriers to involvement in USDA conservation programs, turning their land into an asset. And after doing that work in the nonprofit world for a couple of years, I went out as a private consultant, and that's what I do today.
You know, because when it comes to land, and a lot of us have land, we got family land, we got folks, you know, that passed land down over the years, and we don't have a lot of expertise when it comes to managing land. So the reason I brought these young folks on the show today is so that we can have a good conversation. They've each individually have been on the show before over the years, but when it comes to managing your property and managing things that you have to deal with going forward, you got to have a group. Hey, Henry, turn the music down. That music, turn it down. All right. But when it comes to managing your real estate and manage your property and things like that, we have to make better decisions as a community. And I wanted to invite, you know, the folks that I trust and deal with to talk to the community about how to manage your wealth. And so we're going to start off with Mr. Thompson. You know, just give some basic advice to folks of how they should approach managing what they have in their life.
So I tell people the smartest person I ever met with money was my mother's father, who had an 8th grade education. Mm-hmm. And on that, it's really simple. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. Mm-hmm. So when you start talking about basic budgeting, I mean, that's the foundation of wealth management, because if you can't deal with a penny, how are you going to deal with a dollar? Mm-hmm. So, you know, whatever you believe about budgeting, pay God, pay yourself, pay your necessary bills, and then leave some space for some other types of investing, because saving in itself is not going to get it. So I think we keep it fairly simple and learn how to manage a dollar first. Then you can manage 10, then you manage 100. And then from there, to create the opportunities that a Brandee sees and an Alex sees and that you see, you got to have some liquidity too. You got to have some cash in the bank, because cash is king. That's the saying. And cash creates opportunity. And a lot of times when you have cash, you don't have to use your cash. You can use other people's cash, OPM, other people's money. But the liquidity on the balance sheet helps me acquire other assets that I can then leverage.
All right. So again, it starts with saving, it starts being a little bit disciplined. And you get people who who come up with little windfalls of money. They may get an income tax return, or they may get this, or they may run into a little opportunity where they got a little cash in the bank. And they might want to say, I might want to dibble dabble in some real estate. So and there's a huge opportunity out here, ladies. The reason these folks are calling you from all over the world trying to buy your house or buy Big Mama's house, because there's an opportunity right here. And I want us to take advantage of this opportunity. Not just folk in California, not just Bill Gates in the stock market and the corporations. I want us to take advantage of the opportunity and not be taken advantage of. So, Brandee, talk a little bit about real estate and how people should approach, buying a rental property or buying an investment property.
Well, I think the first step, obviously, is that we're going to definitely have to get our coins or our money together. To Reggie's point, in order for you to even be able to buy a rental property, you have to be able to have some money. So we have to deal with, obviously, credit. We have to make sure that if we don't have the credit, we have to have the cash to buy it. But at the end of the day, in order to even get into this market, you're going to have to know how much money can you actually come into the market with, right? To your point, it is definitely a lot of different opportunities available here in Jackson, in the city limits of Jackson. But you are going to have to be able to have money either for repairs, even for the down payment, to close this particular property out, and different things as it relates to in that transaction in order to obtain the property. So if you're going to have that money from, like you mentioned, even from your income taxes, what other money are you going to pull from maybe some different money that you have, whether you got 401k, whether it's just some different, maybe you've come together as a group to be able to purchase this property. The point is you have to know your money and where that money is going to come from in order to be able to get into the rental market. And then once we purchase the property, let's just be honest, some of these properties that we're talking about may need repairs. Where is that money going to come from? So if we budget it properly from the beginning, we'll be okay. But we do need to make sure we have that conversation about where's the money going to come from.
Okay. And next, I'm gonna ask my good brother Alex to chime in. Because when it comes to buying a piece of property, the next phone call, or it may be a group text I send out to all three of these professionals. See, because I don't make decisions by myself.
Yeah.
I call people who know what they're doing when it's time to make a decision. And, Alex taught me a very valuable lesson about maintaining my land. He taught me many lessons, but he told me the first thing you do is get an appraisal. Before somebody come to your house and say, I want to buy your trees and all this. Alex, talk a little bit about how you should approach, and you've been on the show, we had a whole show about selling trees and selling your trees that you have on your property. Talk a little bit about how people should approach that process.
Yeah, so that gets into a great deal of complexity. But first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that one of the common strands that runs, through all underserved communities, but particularly our community, is lack of information. So there are a great many of African American families, landowners, who don't understand the systems that have been developed to actually create wealth and access the wealth that they literally already have in their control. And so that's what legacy land management is all about, is helping families do that. And one of the things that happens most readily across the state of Mississippi, all throughout the South within African American families, is we end up selling timber, and we sell timber without actually hiring a consulting forester, who is someone who is your advocate, who works on your behalf, who goes out and who appraises that timber, and literally in just about every case negotiates on your behalf. What we tend to do is to sell one of the most important assets that we will ever have blindly and sell it directly to timber buyers. And when you do that, you don't fully understand the complete picture, because if you don't understand how a timber sale transaction sold, it happens. If you don't understand what you're selling and how much you're selling, you don't understand which particular products you're selling, how much of those products you have, what is the current market value for those things, you're literally getting taken advantage of. And what we see most often is, African American families tend to make pennies on the dollar for timber sale transactions that are thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
So, whereas there are very few African American consulting forces. I'm one of only 2 nationwide. And if you correlate that with, how much land ownership there is in the African American community, particularly in Mississippi, you see a tremendous issue where we don't necessarily have access to the resources that we desperately need, and that correlates with information as well. So first thing is hire a consulting force to help you before you have any conversation with somebody about selling timber or managing land.
Mhm.
And then, once you do that, be willing to work with that person, develop trust in that person, and listen to the advice that they give you. A lot of times, unfortunately, I work with landowners who might want to hear what I have to say, but don't necessarily want to follow the gameplay, right? And that puts folks at a disadvantage. And we tend to always think that everybody that we do business with is working for our best interest. And we understand that doing business, the reality is that everybody's out to make a profit. So, there's a whole lot to go beyond your question to me, but I'll just stop there.
So Mr. Stamps, are we gonna stop
Go
and
ahead.
talk about air property right now?
Go ahead. We can dive into
Yeah.
that.
Let's do
My
that.
real estate folks just start nodding their head.
All right.
So can I tell your whole audience that air property is bad?
Very bad.
Now, owning property for generations and for years is good, but air property means someone has, or some people have died in the family and has gone through the estate and probably has not been probated.
Mhm.
So Big Mama had mom and dad. They had property in 1945. They had 6 kids. They wanted to leave their property. There was no will. So
Yep.
when great grandmama died, she left it to the 6 kids. And now they're starting to die. So all of a sudden, what used to be owned by one person is owned by 25 because it splits every time someone dies. So when we talk about financial planning, the Super Bowl of financial planning is estate planning, so that the assets that we have can be passed properly to the people that we love. So estate planning, and oh, by the way, probate is bad. We don't want to go through probate. We want to avoid probate at all costs. So some of the things that we've heard in our community over years, air property and probate, are not good things. Those are things that we're trying to avoid.
And I think, Reggie, to that point, I don't know how I forgot, but I went through something very similar. I am the author of the Coins Legacy Keeper. And to your point, if you don't know that Big Mama has this house and then the mom and dad have passed on, and if, let's just say, for whatever reason, an investor realizes, oh, you all haven't paid these taxes, and or you all about to get ready to lose this property, guess what happens? We're going to see that more investors can jump into buying your house. And we've seen it through Aretha Franklin. We've seen it through several people who've been stars where, things in wills weren't spelled out. And then what we're seeing is that these people can be able to buy your house for pennies on the dollar, fix it up, and then they're selling it. And then we have people in the community like, oh, well, how did that happen? That was supposed to be my house. This should have just been given to me. No one's paying taxes. The brothers and sisters were arguing over who is going to pay the taxes, right? And then we're literally letting more and more time go by because we're not having the necessary conversations and putting things in place to protect all of that information and or that property. And then we're having that to occur in our neighborhood. So we definitely need to make sure we have that conversation about that.
And I'd like to add, there's a long held belief that heirs property is land that can never be sold, right? And that is absolutely the antithesis. Heirs property is the number one cause of Black land loss. All right, it is a detriment to wealth creation, and I would even add that it's a detriment to family connections because in all earnestness you see so many disagreements within families, and people say, well, I'm not going to talk to cousin or sister or uncle or aunt anymore after these very frivolous disagreements without having full context. So heirs property is definitely very bad.
And I would say this for most working professionals these days.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Reggie. Hold on one second, Reggie. We got a caller here. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Yes, I have a question. So, there's some heirs property, I guess, in our family. There's one living sibling, which is my aunt, and but I've been paying the taxes on it for the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. So, how would that work if she should pass? Would that property automatically cut mine, or how does that work?
Can you repeat that question? I didn't hear it very well.
He said that his aunt owns a piece of property, and go ahead. And you've been paying the taxes on it for a couple of years, but your aunt owns. Is your aunt the only sibling, or is there more? Or is there more people?
No, she's the only one left.
All right. And so, how many children were there in the beginning?
I think it was about 10 or 11.
All right. So,
Are they still alive?
all right. So we'll start off with Reggie on that one.
So this is what I'm hearing, and let me make sure I'm saying it right. So there's one living aunt, there's one person that generation, and there were 10 at one time. And this is heir property. It has never been probated. So,
Right. Go ahead. Reggie.
so it's never been probated. So here's what's happened. The aunt is living, but all of the heirs of the other 9 have ownership interest in that property.
That's right.
All of them. So if there was an average of 3 kids apiece or 2 kids apiece, I've got 18 other owners in that property plus my aunt because it's never been probated. And to reconcile that, you probably want to get them to sign it over while she's living and make her the 100% owner, or if they're good with you, make you the owner. But right now, you have multiple owners in a piece of property, and you have no stake in it other than the fact that you have an heir piece. But the fact that you pay the taxes, you paid it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to let it go to now. And I've seen this before. You have to let it go to tax sale. If you bought it in tax sale, it's yours, and you could literally take it from your heirs or from your family. But right now, you have a lot of owners in that heir property.
And so that's how you start a civil war inside your own family. You know, so you have an example of a you could literally break apart your family forever, falling out over a piece of property. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to have a meeting of the minds and sit down and walk y'all way out of this as a family.
And let me say something, and I'll let Brandee and Alex chime in on this. Having land in itself is nothing. It ain't nothing but a bill. You got to pay the taxes. You got to keep it up. So if you're going to have heir property, what's the plan for it to do something? For a lot of us, it's nostalgia. But if we've got a large enough parcel, what are we doing to at least let it pay for itself going forward? Whether we're farming it, whether we're getting trees off of it, because the resentment comes when, like, this young man's been paying the taxes for 8 years, but he's not going to get full value for what he paid for because he's one of many.
And so I'm going to go to Alex next. So when it comes to having a piece of property and looking at what you want to do with it, you got to have a land manager to help manage what am I going to do with this property, or what could I do with this property? And that's why I make the phone call to Alex when it comes to. So Alex, talk about when you sit down with somebody, what kind of conversation you have with them if they have a piece of property and they want to hire you as a consultant forester to take a look at it.
So the first thing is a conversation about what their objectives are. You know, that's the first question that I want to ask anybody who's even before you become a client. I want to say, well, what are your objectives? What are you trying to do? Is it solely economic return? Is it you know, you just want to manage a place so that you can hunt and have, you know, lots of wildlife so that you can go out and enjoy it recreationally? You know, there could be a myriad of objectives. The first thing I'm going to do is ask those objectives. Okay. Beyond that, I just want to go back to this heirs property thing, because so many people don't really understand how wicked and horrible this thing is. So you had a grandparent or someone who bought this property at some point, and then they had 10 children, right? And so that means that property then divides up 10 ways. And so let's say that each one of those 10 children have 3 kids apiece, right? And then they pass away, and then now that property is divided upon all those people as well. It's a problem that can never necessarily be solved until there's actually conversations that are informed and that are unified and that get everybody to the same place. And ultimately, what we want to do is to help people keep their land, right? We want to help them keep it, and then we want to turn it into an asset so that it brings the family together, and then it helps create generational wealth for the family moving forward into the future, right? So back to your question again. Those things are, we start with the objectives. What is that family, farmer, landowner trying to accomplish? And then once we have that, very clear, we go out and we talk about some options. Some not everyone wants to work with a forester. Some people want to do different things with their property in terms of how they accomplish the objectives that they are. What I do as a land manager is typically use forestry or wildlife management or something of that nature in order to, help landowners achieve those objectives. So that could be very diverse in terms of how we accomplish those things.
And I'm going to shift over to Brandee for a second. Talk a little bit about when it comes to real estate. People are calling people's houses now and telling them, hey, we'll buy your house and so forth and so on. If I value everybody who listens to us. If one of my listeners get that phone call tonight, what should they do, Brandee?
I mean, I think you need to know what your number is, your exit strategy. I tell people, at least my clients, what's your exit strategy? How much money do you need to net? And now let me also cushion this to say, we need to make sure the value is there. So granted that the money and the equity is there, you've done well with your property, you've kept it up, and you get that call. And if they just happen to give you a really low offer and you don't even realize how valuable your property is, you've basically given away, your equity. And so you have to really sit down and talk with somebody who understands numbers first before you just give away your property for pennies on the dollar. And then in turn, you see it a couple months later and it's listed for higher revenue. And you're like, wait, what happened here? And then you're like, oh, I could have did this, but you didn't talk to anybody because you just heard a quick number and without really having the right people on your team to help you understand how to navigate what that would look like. So you definitely want to make sure you talk to someone before you just leap out and take just these lowball offers. And that's typically what we've seen here in the market.
I appreciate that. So the first thing, ladies and gentlemen, you need to do is know what your property is worth. You need to know what your timber's worth. You need to know what everything you got on that property is worth. So Alex taught me this first and foremost, is get an appraisal. Don't sell anything until you know what it's worth, not what you paid for it. See, what you paid for it is irrelevant. What is it worth, ladies and gentlemen? Mm-hmm. And that's why the first thing, if somebody's calling you want to buy your land, well, you say, well, let me get an appraisal done. So, go ahead, Reggie.
So let me throw this in there. Everyone should do a personal financial statement and keep it updated at least quarterly. See, my folks that sell houses and make money, see, she nodding again. You need to know the value of all your assets. You need to list those assets. So when you look at a personal financial statement, it's got my assets and liability, my net worth, because I need to know that, because when I'm ready to make some moves, I need to know what moves I can make. I need to have an inventory of my assets, what they're worth, what cash I have in the bank, what other investments I have. I do that on a monthly basis. I update it at the first of every month. So if I need to talk to my bank, he says, well, send me your personal finance. Mm-hmm. You don't need to send me a sheet. I can send it to you because I've already got one. Those are the things that you need when you're understanding your personal finances and ready to do business.
So Reggie, since you said that, yes, you're right. For me personally, I do own multiple properties here in Jackson. I do the same thing. Every month I sit down and I actually updated it, and just, if you all could look into my office, I've just literally completed that that exercise. But to your point, you have to know what's coming in and what's going out. You need to know exactly what your property is worth. Oftentimes when I tell clients that we need to do an appraisal, it's one of those, well, I don't want to spend that money. And I often tell people, why not? This is a value for you. And they're like, well, if it doesn't sell, I just don't want to spend that money. But my thought process is, this is your property. You want to make sure you know the value in your property. And when I go in and list properties, again, I could do broker price opinions of the area to help you understand that. But even if there's some uncertainty where I'm seeing in terms of, obviously this is pre-seller's market, if there was some uncertainty, I will always advise people to go ahead and get an appraisal. Why? Because we can know exactly what it's worth. And then more importantly, we can price it where you're in a better position to be able to net more money. Guessing and or trying to think maybe it can actually sell, why would we do that? That is an investment into what you're going to get on the back end. So that $500, and I'm rounding up, that's an investment to your property that you own. If you paid these many notes all these years, why wouldn't you want to at least spend additional $500 to see the value of what you were when you originally bought the property up until now? Why wouldn't you not want to have that information? So I definitely tell people to make sure they know those numbers.
Man, let me catch this call. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, how you doing, Mr. Stan?
Hey, what's going on, Cab, man?
Representative Stan, I'm sorry. You were speaking about air property and how much confusion and how much trouble it's causing this family, when it comes to trying to maintain and sell. Isn't it a clause that the original owner can put in a air property, so that probably won't create down the road after they're gone?
Okay.
They stipulate through the code. If it's their property, we know it's going to create a problem if you don't have some type of clause to protect each individual that the property is going to be part of to the heir to that property. So can the owner, before they become a statistic, go to the courts and stipulate that this property cannot be sold under no circumstances. It has to be maintained. If ended up the future owners of this property wants to sell it, then they'll be eliminated as being one of the heirs. Can something like that be put in that deed of trust? It's going to be transferred.
Yeah, let me shift over to Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, tell us a little how to avoid even having your property lost to air property.
All right. So most people, if they have a will at all, is probably inadequate. So when we start talking about real assets, we need trust. You got to build a trust to put your assets in. Land assets and real estate assets are perfect for trust. Now, I would say to this gentleman, if he owns property, he can move his stuff into trust. It avoids probate. You can put a lot of language into that trust, including it not being sold. But I will tell you, I would not handcuff my heirs like that because things change. So the whole purpose is to create wealth. Well, the property that you bought now, maybe the city that you're living in starts to expand that way. In 20 years, what you paid $100,000 for is worth $25 million. So why would I handcuff my heirs like that? Because the purpose is to create large windfalls. Now, that being said, I can control money from the grave. So that's what trusts do.
We think of our offsprings and the people that are going to inherit things from us as being able to be somewhat self-sufficient down the road. If it's a piece of property that is kind of personal to the owner, that he took a lot of effort to get this property, why not, if the family don't want to move and build houses on it, why not just keep it in the family and just let it at the property will create value over the years by the timber and other minerals that's on the property. Just don't get rid of the property. Sell whatever resources that the property produces and split it among the heirs. That's wealth in itself.
That's right. And so whatever the decision you want to make, Cab man, those are just different options of how you can decide for it. But most importantly, creating a trust to put the property in, and you can stipulate how you want that trust to be managed. Is that right, Reggie?
Definitely, but I will tell you this again: trust planning is the first. Again, having a conversation that Brandee and Alex are talking about. What are we trying to accomplish? But I will tell you, because this is happening in my own family, the things that may be dear to your heart in this generation, 2 generations from now, that may not be the case. We're having to deal with managing my grandfather, one of my grandfather's assets now, but literally only one person lives up that way, and they're not even able to take care of what we need to take care of. So we have to understand that sometimes what you mean for a blessing could be a curse if it's not properly planned.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, because you're right. The people move away and they forget about that they are part of something, and it's become neglected, and the next thing you know, somebody else had to do a tax sale or whatever. But you're right, it's good to look into this, but I was just throwing that out there just in case, that some things that your people before you have is personal. And, I take a strip of land my grandfather had many years ago, and we still own it. He bought this land when he couldn't read or write. And, back in the day back in the early 1900s, when black men and women purchased something, it was by mere blessing for them to get it, because there were so many things in their way. And so that's the way I feel about this piece of property that I'm talking about now. I'd like to see it just remain in the family, because great-great-grandfather, it took a lot of effort to get it. And to me, it's the sentimental value of it, to me, is much more than the financial value of it. So that's why I was asking those questions.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, man, we appreciate you calling in, sir. There's a couple more callers. Y'all can call in and ask y'all's questions. Call 601-948-5950. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Brother Steph and your guest. Enjoying y'all conversation. I have a question.
All right.
My grandparents, let me back up. My father died, his other 6 children died, right?
Right.
The land, some of the land never been surveyed,
Mm-hmm.
but all of them died off.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody surveyed the property. This is my question. Nobody surveyed the property. So my question is, you got 20 or 30 grandchildren in there, and you got some of the children in there, but one of the kids are paying the taxes on the land, but the land has been surveyed. My question is, give me some ideas here, and then I know y'all gonna give out your number at the end, because I'm gonna be listening. And I'm gonna hang up and let y'all answer my question.
Who wants to take that question?
So he needs to know a land surveyor. Was that his question?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. He needs to. What I'll do is we'll put everybody's phone numbers out. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Okay, now my dad had total of 7 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now the land was in my granddad's name, in my grandmother's name. All right, so they passed on. They gone. The land is still in the granddad's name, but nobody never surveyed the land. Okay, so now my dad and his sister, all 7 of them passed on. They gone.
Right.
And the land still not surveyed.
Mm-hmm.
But you might have a few kids, maybe 1 or 2 been paying taxes on it since. Now remember that my granddad gone, and my dad, my uncles, auntie gone too. So the land is just what he said earlier. What one of your panelists said earlier, that's what constantly come in there, because you got some people that don't know what to do with the land. Land just sitting there. Only 1 or 2 people paying taxes on it. So what kind of advice can you give me so we can move forward? And then, like I said, I know y'all gonna give out numbers. Yeah, I'm gonna be listening real close. Before I hang up, We understand that?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
So the issue is the survey.
Reginald
Right.
Thompson.
That's
The,
that's
the
correct.
issue is not the survey. He needs an attorney because
Exactly.
the property has never been probated.
There you go.
So grandma or granddaddy died probably intestate without a will.
Yes, without a will.
So when it died, so if it's still in their name, it passed to all their heirs, which was the 10 siblings. When they died, each sibling had a 1/10 share.
Mhm.
And each one of those shares split depending on how many kids they have. So again, we have a situation that you probably have 30 plus heirs a part of this property. So them paying the taxes means nothing. They got
Keep
one
it.
share of this thing of however many people. So you need an attorney is what you need to really assess what you have and to probate the estate before you can do anything, because you couldn't even sign a legal agreement, honestly, to get the timber off. Alex, could it?
Well, he actually he could. What tends to happen is a timber buyer that were unscrupulous would probably just come in and there's all sorts of tricks and ways that they purchase timber in these air property situations, but they have their own sort of quasi legal ways of doing that. But I would certainly not suggest doing it, because there are too many things that are unclear. And one of the things those timber buyers will always tell you is that what they're going to do is they're going to pay that landowner less for the timber, because they're going to be sitting back waiting for a lawsuit to happen from another potential heir, right? And again, when you are resolving these air property issues, what you are doing is protecting your assets. You're protecting the wealth that your foreparents left you, and then you're giving yourself an opportunity to push wealth into the future. That's why it's so important to do this. So yeah.
Look, I bet you Brandee can tell an air property nightmare story. I bet you she can.
Hold on 1 second.
I can, but I think the first, just like you said, Reggie, is we definitely need him to go ahead and call an attorney. Obviously, we're not giving out any legal advice, so let's go ahead and put that disclosure out there for all of our numbers' sake. But
Right.
we definitely want to go ahead and get an attorney involved, because to your question, it's not even about a survey at this point. You
Right.
really want to make sure that you and the heirs and the siblings that are left, that the attorney go through the state that they need to in order to go through, and let's go through the probate, and let's figure out what needs to happen for you, and then you can call either of these two gentlemen here to be able to help you with that after that's done. And I think that's the first step you really want to go ahead and do.
All right, so we're gonna go around and round. And if the time flies, we're gonna do this again. But Mr. Thompson, we're gonna start with Mr. Thompson, Reginald Thompson. Just final thoughts, and then we're gonna put his contact information out there so folks can give him a call, ring his phone off the hook, but make sure you have your stuff together when you make the call. So, Mr. Thompson, we'll go to you first.
Well, the biggest thing, you got to have family conversations. You got to have a talk about what it means because wealth means something different to everyone, but we have to have family conversations around money and assets that we don't typically have. And then from there, we got to think further down the road than a car or a house, because we're doing this for our children's children. So every generation needs to be a wealth creator and leave something behind greater than what they found.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And give them a contact information number, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, my office number 769-257-0010.
All right, it's 769. And say it one more time, real slow, brother.
257-0010.
All right, so that's Mr. Reginald Thompson. He's our wealth advisor, and the number 769-257-0010. We're gonna go next to Miss Brandee Harrington. Wrap the conversation up from your standpoint, and we'll put your contact information out there.
So in order to obviously get started, you definitely want to know how much money you're going to need in order to get into the real estate industry. to what you've heard, obviously everybody said today, is that you need to be able to at least make sure from a number standpoint that you know how to jump in here. What I can be able to offer you is, let's look at what you can. Let's look at, we need to be able to offer financing. Maybe you have some different things in place, but we need to talk about it. The second thing is that if we're creating and we're talking about creating generational wealth, then we need to be able to do so in a manner where we're leaving it for your kids, and being able to have the right investment portfolio is definitely the one way to do it, and that's wealth and real estate. So as your licensed real estate broker and investor, to help you along this, that's one of the things that we need to do. And we need to be able to make sure that we talk about it holistically, with being able to talk about not only having real estate, but let's talk about creating conversations through legacy. Let's talk about making sure that our legacy is protected by, number one, having the conversation with the people they need to know about where to find the wealth, how to be able to make sure that we are protecting it, having these estate plans, things of that nature. We need to stop shooing away from these conversations and saying, guess what, mama, daddy, big mama, whoever that may be, tell us how this is all set up so that we can be able to make sure that we continue in the manner of protecting our family and creating generational wealth to come.
All right, so that's Ms. Brandee Harrington. Give us your contact information, ma'am.
Well, that is my cell phone number, but another number is 601-982-1300. That is another number you can get in contact with me. And my email address is on the screen at brandee@jdanielrealtysales.com.
I give the number one more time for folks to scram and get their pen. I want to make sure they got the phone number.
And call me at 601-982-1300. And you can get me directly there as well. And my email address is brandee@jdanielrealtysales.com.
All right, and we're gonna go next to Mr. Alex Harvey. Any final thoughts, Alex, and tell the folks how to contact you.
Yeah, so first and foremost is whether you have air property or not, absolutely do not sell your timber without hiring consulting forester to help you. Let's begin the legwork of helping you to understand the systems of how to develop and create long-term wealth and how to access the wealth you have in your control. So that's first and foremost, is hire a professional to help you. There are folks out here that can do that. My company is one of very few African American companies that do. So I would say start there. Then again, go back to that point of appraisal. Be willing to pay for the appraisal. It's for you. It's to help you. It's to give you a more informed perspective on the wealth that you have and how to make better decisions. So that appraisal thing is really important. I can't underscore that enough. And I see my numbers on screen. My phone number is 601-672-2436.
One more time, real slow, Alex.
601-672-2436.
Let me catch this last caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hey, DeKeither, I didn't mean to be on the air, man, but I'm just trying to bring some of y'all's attention. I'm trying to catch y'all on the smart speaker, and I think something's going on with y'all's internet connection or something.
It may be. I appreciate that. We have that from time to time, but we appreciate you calling in, brother.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the show too, man.
Thanks a lot. We got one more call. Hello. They hung up. All right. Call back, call. I think you hung up. All right. Well, first and foremost, I want to say thanks to everybody for calling in. Thanks to everybody for paying attention. And we try to get as much good information as possible. You can go back online, take a look at the information, watch the video again. Everybody's contact information is there. Any parting words, Starlette and Jason?
I've learned a lot. I have about 5 pages of notes. So
Don't worry. We're finna
I'm
deep
just
reef in a
sitting here
minute.
learning.
JC?
I would say this though. I'm pretty sure we're gonna make a series out of this.
Yeah, we'll come back again.
Yeah, I think it's every month, once a month, it won't hurt, or quarterly, whatnot. Because I had a couple of questions. I did, right now millennials are doing this cryptocurrency stuff. So I'm like, hey, here goes some hard access right here. We might need to start doing more real estate investing instead of doing all crypto. So I got a few questions too. So I'm looking forward.
We're gonna follow the conversation up. We're gonna have this conversation again. First, I want to say thank you to Mr. Reginald Thompson, Ms. Brandee Harrington Williams, and Mr. Alex Harvey for taking time out of your schedule to just educate us. And we only have a short period of time on the radio here, but thank you so much. And I want to say thanks to the listeners for always tuning in, and thanks to everybody at 90.1. And remember our sponsors, the National Wildlife Federation, the mighty brother at Michael Jordan Transportation Service. You can go to www.mjstransportation1.com for your transportation needs. And Stamp SuperBurgers. Go on over and get you one of them whole cows between 2 pieces of bread that's juicy and tasty and seasoned all the way to the last bite. And, you know, take the lemon pepper fries. I love lemon pepper fries they got over there. That's my favorite. They got some vegan options as well. So go and check them out. We got to go. I see the brother coming in right behind. He's chomping at the bit to jump in the studio, about to snatch me out the chair, y'all. As I say every week, I love you first and foremost. I love you, Jackson. I love you, Mississippi. But more importantly, don't ever let anybody put you in a position when you don't love your own people. Because when you hate your own folks, you're part of the very oppression we're trying to lift ourselves out of. I love you, Jackson. I love you, Mississippi. Handyman, get us out of here.